Yeah, that actually does, because that would be for a guest.
I guess, yep.
Wonder
So,
why we're talking about two hands.
mic check, 1, 2. So I am on the wireless mic, but then I come up and I'm going to turn that off, and I'm going to use the ambo. And that was pretty natural sounding, that transition there. And then I'm going to turn this on. I'm going to step back, and now I'm on the wireless mic again. So that was just very smooth. I'm going to time this. I'm going to turn it off. 1, 2. So right before 2 seconds, it turned on. So about a second and a half, and it's hot. And again, I really can go on here and use both. Does that? It probably sounds slightly louder.
Yeah, I can hear the interference.
It sounds robotic. It
Yeah.
doesn't sound natural. So that's not recommended. But I just turned myself off, and now that sounds natural again.
Yeah. Was that phase interference?
Phase cancellation.
Yeah. And we got
Wow.
a ring. Hello? It's not me.
I think that's me. The more you get in front of the speakers, the more feedback you get. That's why we got these highly directional. These are cardioid instead of omni, and that allows us to get more volume before feedback occurs.
So they're cardioid, not hypercardioid.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha.
And to show you that, should take this clip off. Well, they're easier to put on.
Well, you could talk about the little symbol. Yeah, I know what those look like. It's cardioid because it looks like a heart.
That's right. So, are you guys listening upstairs? Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, so I'm talking. I am on the Father's wireless lapel microphone. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to come over here and transition to the ambo. So now I'm talking on the ambo. I can feel that pulse through. I'm going to turn that down just a little bit. And I managed my mute there, and that was very seamless. But I'm also not trying to communicate the gospel. I'm thinking about microphones, so that's a very natural thing for me to do because that's what's on my mind. I imagine it's a lot harder to be going through Mass and thinking about microphones, but that comes with the territory nowadays.
Yeah.
So I will talk about the speakers because if there was ever another place to spend money on the AV system, that would be it. So the speakers are not appropriate for the room for a couple of reasons. So one, they're not big enough, and so they're not able to control lower frequencies, and that has to do with the size of the drivers inside of the speaker. The larger the driver, the lower it can control patterns and frequencies naturally. We don't need huge speakers, but they're a little undersized. For speech, that's not terrible. My chest, probably around 500 hertz. It's not coming through the way I would like. And then this is a very wide room, and so we might need something, either a speaker with a very wide dispersion, or maybe a left, center, right type of configuration. There's several different ways to do that without being ugly. We've got tools in the tool bag. And I need to do a little research on these. These might be doing an okay job, but I want to do a great job. So the reverberance in the room is fantastic for music, and it's challenging for speech. The more reverberant a room is, what ends up happening is the beginning of a word is in the room at the same time as the end of the word. because it's all, so RT60 is the measurement that we use to figure out reverberance. And reverberance is how long does it take for a sound to die inside of the room. So if I clap my hands and then it's just really quick, that's a very low reverberant space. Whereas here, it lasts for about 1.5 seconds, which is great, but that's difficult for speech. And so we want to minimize the amount of energy from the speakers that bounces off of the surfaces in the room. The only place that I care about audio energy is the seats. I don't care about the walls or the ceiling. And so having some highly directional array speakers that can tighten up the vertical plane, then that avoids energy coming onto the stage, which means I can be loud without feedback, because I'm fighting that a little bit. It avoids any reverberance off of these surfaces. And what it ends up doing is it just sounds more like a conversation and less like a big boomy room.
Right.
So that would be kind of the, this gives us the ability to mix separately for the live stream, and we can wirelessly take care of that and clean this up, and we've got the auto mixer, so it's just very simple and on, and it's all new equipment, so it's going to last a long time. So we've got a ton of good things done on here. But I'd say and it would be, probably $30,000 minimum. But if we had a capital campaign, we could make an improvement in how reflective the room sounds for speech. That's totally something we could improve. The best example of that is actually not a church. Texas A&M has a law school in Fort Worth, right next to the Sheraton Hotel, but they needed a large classroom size, larger than they had in their law school. So they've been renting a ballroom at the Sheraton Hotel for a couple years, but the kids are complaining that they can't hear because the HVAC, when it kicks on, is so loud. They've got 60 kids. The kids at the very back of the room can't hear anything. So they said, well, we need a rental venue to have for a semester. So they chose the Ashton Depot, which is a 100-year-old train depot, which means it has a 60-foot curved plaster ceiling, plaster walls, tile floor. It's just an echo chamber. And so they brought me in to do some microphone work, but then they said, kids can't hear at the back of the room. And I said, well, you have this cheap little speaker that's just putting the sound out everywhere. We need a really directional line array speaker that'll keep sound off the ceiling. And they kind of didn't want to do it, and then they moved in, and then it was just terrible. And I said, $500 a month, let's go. I had one in my inventory, and the problem is like 90% mitigated. Didn't fix it because they have an acoustical problem, but we were able to reduce the effect that problem has.
Excuse me. Yes, but I can't chew bubble gum at the same time. Okay. So, we are a pilgrim people. We are the Church of God, a family of believers, disciples of the Lord, united in one spirit, ignited by the fire, still burning through the ages, still present in our lives. heart. Come with your love and pleasant ways to fill the heart which thou hast made. We are a pilgrim people, we are the Church of God, a family of believers.